Some people walk through life believing they are entitled to you, entitled to your time, entitled to your energy, entitled to your emotional availability, entitled to your peace. Not because they've earned it, but because you've always given it. And most of the time, they don't even ask. They just take. They show up when they need something. They unload their stress onto you. They cross lines you never agreed to, and then act surprised when you feel drained. And here's the most dangerous part. This behavior is often tolerated the longest in families and long-term relationships. Because we're taught things like, blood is thicker than water. That's just how they are. Family should always come first. So we ignore the discomfort. We silence our instincts. We tell ourselves we're being patient, loving, understanding. But what's really happening? Slow emotional exhaustion. You wake up already tired. You stay in survival mode, just trying to get through interactions without conflict. And after every conversation with certain people, you feel empty, hollow, like something has been taken from you again. Not dramatically, quietly. I once worked with a woman, let's call her June. She was in her mid-60s, gentle, loyal, the kind of person who never said no. June spent her entire life helping family, babysitting, lending money, solving problems that weren't hers to solve. Then one month, her daughter asked to borrow money 4 times. No repayment, no discussion, no gratitude. And for the first time, June paused. She told me, I realized something that day. This isn't love. This is entitlement wearing the mask of family. That moment changed her life. Because she finally saw the truth most people avoid. Just because someone is close to you does not mean they get unlimited access to you. And here's the hard reality no one prepares you for. If you keep tolerating behavior that drains you, disrespects you, or diminishes you, you will be the one who pays the price. Not them. Your mental health pays. Your confidence pays. Your peace pays. That's why in this video, we're going to talk about 6 behaviors you should never tolerate from anyone. Not from a partner, not from a boss, not from a friend, and yes, not even from family. These aren't dramatic red flags. They're subtle, normalized, often excused. But left unchecked, they quietly destroy your sense of self. This isn't about cutting people off impulsively. It's about waking up, about recognizing when loyalty turns into self-betrayal, about understanding that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. The Stoics taught that while you can't control how others behave, you are fully responsible for what you allow. And today, you're going to learn where the line must be drawn. Because the moment you stop justifying disrespect is the moment you start reclaiming your life. Let's begin. Behavior number 1. Constant criticism. The slow erosion of your self-worth. Constant criticism doesn't usually arrive loudly. It doesn't scream. It doesn't explode. It doesn't look like obvious abuse. It arrives quietly, one comment at a time. At first, it sounds harmless. A remark about how you dress. A joke about how you speak. A suggestion about how you should think, act, or live. But over time, something shifts. You start shrinking, not because you've changed, but because someone has slowly convinced you that who you are is never quite enough. This is what constant criticism does. It doesn't attack a single mistake. It attacks you, and that's the difference most people miss. There is a world of difference between constructive feedback and constant criticism. Constructive feedback is specific. It's about improvement. It comes from care. Constant criticism is vague, repetitive, and personal. It's not about helping you grow. It's about keeping you small. It controls by lowering your confidence. It dominates by making you doubt yourself. And the damage isn't just emotional. It's neurological. When criticism comes repeatedly, especially from people close to us, the brain starts to treat it as a threat. Your nervous system goes into defense mode. You begin to hesitate before speaking. You second-guess your ideas. You replay conversations in your head, wondering if you said something wrong. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. In families, this often shows up as comparison. Why can't you be more like your brother? Your sister figured this out years ago. At work, it's the boss who only notices what's wrong, never what's working, no recognition. No balance, just correction. In relationships, it's the partner who hides insults behind honesty. I'm just telling the truth. I'm just being real. But if honesty consistently leaves you feeling smaller, quieter, and less confident, that's not truth. That's erosion. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control what others say or do, we are fully responsible for what we accept. Not what we hear, but what we allow to shape us. And here's the hard truth. What feels familiar is not always healthy. Many people tolerate constant criticism because they grew up with it, because it's always been there, because it's been normalized as tough love. But familiarity is not a measure of safety. Your body already knows this. The tight shoulders around certain people, the fatigue after conversations, the hesitation before answering their call, those are not overreactions. They are signals. So how do you respond? First, you validate your experience. You stop gaslighting yourself. You stop telling yourself it's not that bad. Second, you draw a line. That line might look like limiting how much you share. It might look like spending less time around them, or creating emotional distance where constant criticism once had full access. And in some cases, yes, it may mean walking away. Not out of anger, not out of drama, but out of self-respect. Because no one has the right to convince you that your worth is conditional. No one gets to shape your identity through repeated negativity and call it care. The moment you stop absorbing constant criticism is the moment you begin to hear your own voice again. And that's where your strength returns. Behavior number 2, boundary violations, the help, is really control. One of the most misunderstood forms of emotional harm doesn't come with shouting or insults. It comes quietly, casually, disguised as care, help, or family concern. It's called boundary violation. I once heard a story that perfectly captures this. An elderly woman gave her son a spare key to her home, strictly for emergencies. That was the agreement. Clear, simple. At first, he used it appropriately, dropping off groceries, leaving paperwork. Then one day, she woke up and realized someone was moving around her house. It was her son, no call, no knock. Later, she gently explained how uncomfortable it made her feel. He laughed, told her she was overreacting. Said, "I'm just helping." The next week, it happened again. And that's when she asked a question many people are afraid to ask. Why do I feel guilty for wanting privacy in my own home? That question reveals the truth. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a power play. Boundary violations happen when someone ignores limits you've clearly set and then makes you feel like the problem for having them. Let's get something straight. Boundaries are not walls. They are not punishments. They are principles. They protect what matters most: your time, your space, your energy, your emotional safety. Healthy boundaries can look like wanting notice before someone visits, not discussing certain topics at family dinners, keeping finances separate, expecting privacy in your messages or home, needing alone time without explanation. None of these are unreasonable. But boundary violators, especially those closest to us, will act like they are. There are 2 types of people who cross boundaries. The first does it unconsciously. They grew up in environments where emotional access was demanded, not earned, where closeness meant control, where family meant no privacy. They may genuinely believe love equals unlimited access. The second type is more dangerous. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't break boundaries all at once. They test them. A small comment here, an uninvited question there, a joke about something personal. They push, pause, observe, and push again. When you finally speak up, they say things like, "You're being dramatic. You've changed. I was just trying to help." That's not confusion. That's manipulation. And over time, the damage is real. You stop trusting yourself. You stop asserting your needs. You begin to feel like you don't even deserve basic respect. From a Stoic perspective, this is where self-governance matters. Epictetus taught that while we can't control other people, we are responsible for managing what we allow into our lives. That includes access. So how do you respond? Not with anger. Not with long explanations, but with clarity. State the behavior. State how it affects you. State what will change if it continues. No apologies. No over-justifying. And here's the part most people avoid. Boundaries without consequences are not boundaries. They're suggestions. If someone keeps crossing lines after you've been clear, the answer isn't another conversation, it's action. Less access, more distance, or in some cases no access at all. Because anyone who truly cares about you may stumble at first, but they will adjust. They won't resent your boundaries, they'll respect them. And anyone who insists your boundaries are too much is telling you exactly how little they value your autonomy. Your peace is not optional, your space is not negotiable, and protecting yourself is not selfish. It's wisdom. Behavior number 3, manipulation and gaslighting. Some of the most dangerous harm in life doesn't leave bruises. It leaves confusion. Manipulation and gaslighting don't hurt your body, they disorient your mind, and that's what makes them so hard to recognize. And so devastating to live with. At first, nothing feels extreme. No yelling, no obvious cruelty, just small phrases. You're too sensitive. I never said that. You always twist things. On their own, these words seem harmless. But repeated over time, they do something terrifying. They make you doubt yourself. You stop trusting your memory. You second-guess your instincts. You start confusing anxiety with intuition, wondering, is something really wrong? Or am I the problem? That's the goal. Because manipulation isn't about disagreement. It's about control through confusion. One of the clearest signs you're being gaslit is what happens after the conversation ends. You replay it in your head again and again. You try to remember exact words. You search for proof that what you felt was real. And slowly, a frightening thought creeps in. Maybe I'm losing my mind. But let me be very clear about something. You are not becoming weak. You are not becoming irrational. You are not imagining things, you are being strategically destabilized. Gaslighting works by slowly replacing your inner voice with theirs, until their version of reality feels more reliable than your own. From a Stoic perspective, this is one of the most dangerous violations of all. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly to seek truth as it is, not as others present it. Because the moment you surrender your perception to someone else, you surrender your freedom. And manipulators know this. They don't want resolution. They don't want understanding. They want you unsure, because uncertainty makes you easier to control. That's why arguing with a gaslighter rarely works. You can present facts, you can explain calmly, you can speak from the heart, and none of it matters. Because they are not participating in a conversation, they are running a system. So how do you protect yourself? First, stop trying to win the argument. A gaslighter doesn't want truth. They want exhaustion. The more you explain, the more material they collect to twist later. Instead, step back into observation. Second, document reality. Write things down, dates, conversations, contradictions, not to confront them, but to re-anchor yourself. To remind yourself that your memory is not broken. Third, reality check with someone outside the situation, a trusted friend, a therapist, someone with no incentive to manipulate you. When another person calmly validates what you experience, something powerful happens. The fog starts to lift. And finally, consequences. Not threats. Not speeches, consequences. If the pattern continues, you step back, you limit access, you withdraw your energy. You don't need drama, you need distance. Here's the truth many people struggle to accept. Manipulation is not a communication problem. It is a control strategy. And no one who truly loves you would ever want you confused, doubting yourself, or disconnected from your own inner compass. So trust the discomfort. Pay attention to patterns, not promises. And the moment someone repeatedly makes you question your sanity, that's the moment you stop giving them access to your mind. That isn't weakness. That's wisdom. Behavior number 4, chronic dishonesty that destroys trust. There's a moment most people remember clearly. The moment you realize someone has lied to you, not a misunderstanding, not a small mistake, not a detail they forgot. A real lie, intentional, calculated, delivered calmly, without hesitation. And in that moment, something breaks. Not just your trust in them, but your sense of safety in the relationship. Because when someone lies repeatedly, the damage doesn't come from one big betrayal. It comes from the slow drip, the white lies, the half-truths, the promises that sound good but never materialize. The stories that change just enough to make you doubt whether it's worth questioning. And over time, you stop asking questions, not because you believe them, but because you're tired. That's what chronic dishonesty really does. It exhausts you. You start double-checking your memory, replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you misunderstood, wondering if you're being too strict, too demanding, or too sensitive, and that's the real cost. You don't just lose trust in them, you start losing trust in yourself. And here's where it gets dangerous. We live in a culture that often excuses dishonesty in the name of peace. Everyone lies a little. They didn't mean it. They were just trying to avoid drama. They didn't want to hurt your feelings, but let's be honest. When someone consistently chooses comfort over truth, they're telling you exactly where you rank in their priorities. Below their convenience, below their image, below their ability to avoid consequences. This isn't about perfection. It's about integrity. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said something simple and unforgiving: without truth there is no friendship. And he was right. Because a relationship without honesty isn't connection, it's performance. You're not relating to who they are. You're reacting to who they pretend to be. And that kind of relationship will slowly hollow you out. So what do you do when dishonesty becomes a pattern? First, stop listening to the apologies and start watching the behavior. Anyone can sound sincere for a moment. Anyone can promise change after being caught. But patterns don't lie. Do the actions change? Or do the excuses just get better? Second, stop trying to fix them. This is where many good, loyal people get trapped. They explain more. They forgive faster. They carry emotional weight that isn't theirs to carry. But someone else's honesty is not your responsibility. You are not obligated to educate someone into integrity. And finally, and this is the hardest part, set real consequences, not threats. Not speeches, consequences that might look like emotional distance. Less access to your inner world. Silence instead of arguments. Or, in some cases, walking away entirely. Because staying in a space where truth never shows up is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. You deserve consistency. You deserve clarity. You deserve to feel grounded in reality, not constantly guessing what's real and what isn't. Honesty isn't just a moral value, it's a mental health requirement. And the moment you stop accepting chronic dishonesty is the moment you stop bleeding energy into a relationship that was never built on truth in the first place. That's not cruelty, that's self-respect. And it's long overdue. Behavior number 5, disrespect disguised as just a joke. It often starts with laughter, a casual comment at the dinner table, a joke made in front of other people, a remark about your appearance, your past, your mistakes, delivered with a smile. And maybe you laugh along, not because it's funny, but because it feels easier than making things awkward. But inside, something tightens. Your chest feels heavy. Your face gets warm. You don't feel seen. You feel exposed. Then, when you finally speak up, when you say, "That didn't feel good," they dismiss it instantly. "Relax, I was just joking. You're too sensitive. Can't you take a joke?" This is one of the most socially accepted forms of disrespect we tolerate, especially from people close to us. And it is dangerous precisely because it hides behind humor. I once worked with a woman named Carol. She was in her 70s. Strong, intelligent, raised in a time where you didn't complain about words, you endured them. Her older brother had been the funny one her entire life. He joked about her weight, her divorce, her home, her choices, always with a grin, always followed by, "I'm just being honest." For decades, Carol brushed it off. She told herself, that's just how he is. Family doesn't mean harm. Until one holiday dinner, he laughed and said, "Well, your husband didn't leave you." He escaped. The table laughed. Carol didn't. That was the moment something broke. Not because of one joke, but because she realized she had spent her entire life letting someone sharpen their tongue on her dignity and calling it love. Here's the truth most people avoid. If the laughter only goes one way, it's not humor, it's humiliation. Real jokes don't leave one person feeling small. Real humor doesn't target wounds. And real honesty does not require cruelty. There is a phrase people love to hide behind. "I'm just being real." But brutal honesty isn't truth. It's dominance disguised as courage. Truth, when it's rooted in character, is deliberate, measured, and respectful. From a Stoic perspective, words are not neutral tools. Marcus Aurelius believed language should be used like medicine, to heal, not to harm. Using jokes to undermine someone isn't strength. It's cowardice with a smile. So how do you respond? First, stop laughing at what hurts you. Every forced smile teaches people what they're allowed to do to you. Second, name the behavior calmly. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain your childhood. You don't need to defend your feelings. You simply say, that was disrespectful. Then you stop talking. Let the discomfort sit where it belongs, with them, and if it continues, you don't escalate emotionally, you escalate with action, you step back, you withdraw access. You leave the room, the conversation, or eventually the relationship. Because repeated disrespect, especially when wrapped in humor, is still disrespect. People who truly care about you care how their words land, not just what they meant. And remember this, proximity does not entitle anyone to degrade you, not family, not friends, not partners. You are allowed to say, that's not funny. You are allowed to say, that's not love. And you are allowed to walk away without saying anything at all. Because dignity is not negotiable. Not in your presence. Not anymore. Behavior number 6. When they make you feel guilty for having normal needs, there is a very quiet form of control that almost never gets called out. It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't insult you directly. Instead, it makes you feel guilty for simply being human. You start apologizing for things you never should have to apologize for. You say sorry for wanting a moment of silence. Sorry for needing rest. Sorry for not answering right away. Sorry for saying no, and somewhere along the way, protecting yourself starts to feel selfish. If that sounds familiar, pay close attention, because this is one of the most damaging behaviors of all. I've seen this happen countless times, especially in families and long-term relationships. You finally speak up and say, I'm tired. They respond, wow. It's not that serious. You say, I can't do this right now. They say, family doesn't keep score. You say, I need space. They say, why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? And just like that, your needs are reframed as flaws? Not because they're unreasonable, but because they're inconvenient. This is guilt used as a leash. It trains you to ignore your own limits in order to keep the peace. It teaches you that love requires self-erasure. And over time, you stop asking what you need at all. You just endure, but let's be clear about something important. Feeling guilty for having boundaries is not a sign that your boundaries are wrong. It's a sign that someone benefited from you not having them. This kind of manipulation often hides behind moral language. Good people sacrifice. Strong people don't complain. If you really cared, you'd just do it. But that's not strength. That's conditioning. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior cuts directly against self-respect. The Stoics never taught self-destruction in the name of virtue. They taught self-governance. To govern yourself means knowing when to give and when to stop giving. It means understanding that your energy is finite, your attention is finite, your emotional capacity is finite. And anyone who demands unlimited access is not asking for love, they're asking for control. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. You can be kind and still say no. You can be loving and still rest. You can be loyal and still protect your peace. Self-respect is not selfishness. And sacrificing yourself endlessly is not morality, it's neglect. So how do you respond when guilt is used against you? First, stop over-explaining. You don't need a courtroom defense for your boundaries. A simple, I'm not available for that is enough. Second, notice the pattern. If someone consistently dismisses your needs but never sacrifices their own, that's not misunderstanding. That's imbalance. And finally, accept this. Some people will only be comfortable with you when you are overgiving, over-apologizing, and underprotected. When you stop doing that, they may call you cold, distant, selfish. Let them. Because the moment you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable is the moment you begin to reclaim your dignity. You are not wrong for needing rest. You are not weak for wanting peace, and you are not cruel for choosing yourself. That is not abandonment. That is wisdom. And anyone who truly values you will never require your guilt to feel close to you. Remember that. Let's bring this all together. The 6 behaviors we've talked about today are not personality traits. They are not how someone is. They are not things you're supposed to tolerate to prove your strength, loyalty, or maturity. They are warning signs. And the longer you ignore a warning sign, the more damage it does, quietly, steadily, and deeply. Here's one of the biggest lies many good people believe: that enduring mistreatment makes you noble. That staying silent makes you strong. That sacrificing yourself makes you virtuous. It doesn't. Endurance without boundaries doesn't build character. It builds exhaustion. It drains your energy. It dulls your confidence. It slowly convinces you that your needs don't matter, that peace is something you earn by suffering. But that is not wisdom, and it is not Stoicism. The Stoics never taught blind tolerance. They taught discernment. They taught that while you cannot control other people's behavior, you are fully responsible for what you allow to remain in your life. And this matters especially when the person causing harm is close to you. Because family, love, history, and familiarity, none of these are licenses to disrespect you. Being related to someone does not give them the right to drain you. Loving someone does not mean absorbing their harm. And staying loyal at the cost of your mental health is not virtue, it's self-abandonment. There is a powerful question the Stoics return to again and again. And it's one you need to ask yourself honestly. Does this relationship nourish me, or does it deplete me? Pay attention to how you feel after interacting with someone. Do you feel grounded, respected, and steady? Or do you feel tense, smaller, second-guessing yourself, emotionally tired? Because relationships that constantly take more than they give are not neutral. They are slowly reshaping you. And every time you tolerate what hurts you, you send a message, not just to them but to yourself, that your peace is optional. It's not, you don't need dramatic confrontations. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. You don't need permission. Sometimes the most stoic response is quiet clarity, a boundary, a step back, a decision to no longer participate in what diminishes you. Remember this: people who truly care about you may struggle with your boundaries at first, but they will respect them. Only those who benefit from your lack of boundaries will fight them. And that tells you everything you need to know. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is responsible. It is mature, it is necessary. So, as you move forward, carry this with you. You are not here to be endlessly available. You are not here to be drained in the name of love. You are not here to shrink so others can stay comfortable. You are here to live with dignity. And the moment you stop tolerating what harms you is the moment you begin living like someone who finally understands their worth. That's not weakness. That's stoic strength.